Welcome back. This is the last part of the workshop, which is really the take-home principles from today. So bringing it all together. It's my interpretation of what I think the core messages are from this workshop and also GenAI principles in general. So what I'd start with is privacy first. Never put identifiable patient data or highly sensitive information into OpenAI systems. Again, this comes back to that ethics discussion. There may be ways in which that could be permissible, where if you're informing the participant, if it's in a closed system, but I think unless you've designed and built the AI model yourself and it's within a closed system, which you can do, it's sort of another workshop. But you can build AI systems yourself, train it on localized data, make sure it's not actually accessing the information elsewhere. So it is a truly closed system rather than other systems which are using AI that's available everywhere, like Microsoft Copilot, and creating it within a closed system. This is actually developed on localized data. Then I think it's a real important ethical discussion to have. Because whilst you can inform the participant that your data could be used in this way, the question is, can you assure that the way you as a researcher know how the data is being used by those companies? As I said, I've read through the privacy statements of a few, and they're not clearly written in a way that would provide assurance that the data is not being used in other ways in terms of how those companies manage it. So I think as a rule of thumb, the privacy first is really critical. The second take-home principle I'd say is have a go. I know there's been a lot of information, a lot of concepts that have been covered. I think sometimes it can feel like there's a right and a wrong way to navigate this space, but really, I think the way to learn is to just give it a go. And I think that's where the text, the voice to interactive conversation mode is really effective, because it allows you to just talk to it as you would anyone else and just have an entry point in. And that's the first barrier. And then you can worry about how you can get the best out of it through prompt engineering. But I know we spend a lot of time on prompt engineering because it can have a lot of utility in getting good outputs. But at the very basic, just give it a go. Use the technology in its natural conversational tone it was designed with first, before focusing on ways to optimize prompts. I think that's really important. The third take-home principle is choose the right tool for the job. So AI tools, they all have different strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes this principle means knowing when not to use AI. So for example, in research, are participants fully informed that their data will be placed into an AI system? But also considering the different AI systems have strengths and limitations. And this is discovered through playing with them, but also you know already of the variability in the context window across the different AI models. And so if you want to do multi-shot prompting and you need to give it lots of examples, then that largely requires a larger context window. And so you'd be using the AI for that. And so these are different strengths and weaknesses you can consider. You can also do the same task with multiple different AIs. And I think that's a nice way to get a sense of what some AIs are better at than others. It's constantly changing, but it's something that can be useful to get a sense of the landscape there. So choose the right tool for the job. I think, and a key take-home principle, at least for me, is to start small. So using AI effectively, I think it often means breaking down a task into simple steps, then working with AI to achieve those steps. Often I think is the case that when you try to work on something that's really, really big, it requires a lot of effort in the prompting, and you could still have gaps. So if you can just break that down into smaller steps and focus on detailed prompts for those steps, then you'll get better output when you need to do a bigger piece of work. So starting small works really, really well in my experience. I think also another important one is to reverse engineer when possible. And what that means is have a vision for what the output should look like. And if you know what that output should be, then you can craft a more specific and tailored response to help the AI. And that may not always be the case. You may be working out the problem with AI as you go, which is fine. But if you do have a clear understanding of the end goal, or even better, an example to work on and adapt to, this will speed up the process. So when you have a clear vision, you can really craft detailed, specific prompts, give it examples, and help it provide relevant output. So I think always work backwards where possible. Uh, the next principle is to demand. If you're demanding more, you have to give it more. So if you're demanding more from the output and you want larger pieces of work, this is where you really need to give it more time and effort in crafting the prompts to get the best output. So invest that time and effort in those prompting using the prompting techniques if you're expecting a larger piece of work, whether in quantity or quality, that's what's required. I think when in doubt, asking AI for help is a good principle. It's important to view AI as a partner through the process. It's not necessarily you're understanding everything. I think asking the AI for help can be useful along the process. I think number 8 is play. So it's a more fun way of saying the process of trial and error. As much as people are learning about these technologies, it's constantly changing. And for specific tasks, there will be optimal ways of prompting that are only discovered through trial and error. The first response is rarely the final response. Even with great prompting, iteration is key. So even when you're using all these strategies, it's very rarely you plug in a prompt, you get your output, and you're done. You often need this iterative refinement process, and that comes through play. So I think that's really, really important. And in the process of play, I'd say to play and challenge, right? So constantly challenge the AI models along with working with them to ensure that you're pushing back and you're seeing where it's in some ways not providing you with content, or whether it's falling into that sycophancy, trying to please you a bit more, which it's natively designed to do. And number 9 is probably one of the most important ones out of all of these, which is take responsibility. This means take responsibility of the output and ensure you verify that you have double checked the output of AI. There was a example of Deloitte who provided the government with a report, and the report had fabricated references, and there have been other companies that have done similar things, and it's been come out in the media, and it's really a marker of integrity of taking responsibility and ownership. Someone has to take ownership for the product that's there. It's not the AI, it's the person who's submitting the task or reviewing the task or whose responsibility is the task. So for my students, it's important that the work that you submit, either as a student or as an employee, or when you're working in a company, it's important that you verify that it has your stamp of authority. When you send it off to someone, or if it represents your name, it's something that you verify that you've reviewed it and you're happy to put your name on that, and that it's something that you've authenticated through your review. So I think double checking the output of AI is really critical piece, and I think that's missing in many things and many elements. And so this is where taking responsibility is really, I think, an important lesson that I can't hammer home enough. Everyone has to take responsibility for the work that they use AI with, and with that comes credit and transparency. So that's the final take-home message: is being transparent and open about AI use. At a minimum, what tool have you used and how was it used? I think that transparency is really important. Ironically, it may be missing in terms of how those AI tools were developed themselves, but in some ways, it doesn't mean that just because it hasn't been done there, it shouldn't be done here. It should be done here in terms of transparency. If you use an AI tool for a certain purpose, say what it is for, and I think that helps with many things in life. For example, when we talk about those videos that are generated, something that's great is seeing a stamp that says it's a video generated with AI, so people aren't deceived when they watch videos and or misinformed. That's going to happen inevitably, but I think there's mitigating strategies, and this is one of those where you can be transparent as to when an image was produced with AI and when an image or video wasn't produced with AI, and what's real, what's not. I think that has implications in academia, implications in the public, and wider as well. So that's it. That's everything. The last section is GenAI testing assessments of work. What I'd love for you to do is pick an assessment or a piece of work or something you're working on, and use everything you learned in prompting and your understanding of AI to do that piece of work. So have a go at that. I think it's a great activity to really help you apply what you've learned in this workshop to that. In that as well, if you could provide some feedback as to how you found this workshop, there's a form there and a QR code. I'd really appreciate it if you take the time. I'm sort of a one-man show here, taking the time to sort of put together these resources to help everyone who's trying to learn about GenAI. And so the more feedback that I can receive, the more I can sort of inform my practice, but also I can use it to support the work that I'm doing as well. So thanks. I hope you've enjoyed this workshop series. If you have any questions, you're welcome to email me. There's my email, and you can follow me on LinkedIn, which is where I post work that I'm doing as well. So those are the key takeaways. Hopefully you've really enjoyed the course. You feel like you have a better grasp of AI, and you can go forward and use it in ways that are of most value to you and most value to others. So thanks so much for your time, and yeah, hope you enjoyed the course.